You know, there's all these stories about, you know, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites.
Number 24 is Content Farms in Macedonia.
Бидејќи ако се направи грешка, таа ќе биде кобна. Нема враќање назад.
So Europe need to remain more sexy lady in the world.
Ајде, мајката!
Господа ја чува Македонија и низините граѓани.
Unless he's coming up here. So anyway,
So you're here?
I'm here. Yes, this is Jason Migo coming to you from the foot of Vodno Mountain in Skopje, Macedonia.
And this is Cvetin Čilimanov, also in Skopje, Macedonia, for a rare live recording of the Macedonian Content Farmers podcast.
Yes, I think this is episode 149, but we need to kind of confirm that. We might have, I know we missed episode 10. We don't talk about episode 10.
Yeah.
And there may have been another one, but
There's so many episodes.
if this is episode 149, and officially it is episode 149, that means for episode 150, maybe I'll be here and we can do this. We should do something special. I don't know what, but we'll have to...
Bungee jumping. No, it's so many episodes. I didn't think the podcast or the country will last that long.
And I know we said that we would do this more often, and then life intervenes.
Yeah.
Whether it's our Christmas and then New Year's, or then Orthodox Christmas,
So
and
many
travel,
Christmases.
and people are sick and whatnot. But, you know, I am here and it is now, and we got ourselves, as James Lilac says, let's have ourselves a podcast.
Yeah, and we have actually good timing. We have the New American Henchman right like a few hundred meters from us. Or I think he already left like an hour ago. But
You are referring to
how do you pronounce that? I don't know.
Derek Chalet.
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 Like the ski cabin, or
No, that would be a C-H-A-L-E-T. This is C-H-O-L-L-E-T. So, officially, the counselor of the department, Derek Chalet.
it's a weird position to get involved in
It's
Macedonia.
I don't know what even that is. And, of course, he is I think he's a far lefty. He has never worked in the private sector. He's always been in politics. He has a Bachelor of Arts degree, and that's it. Which is I've just got a Bachelor of Science degree, but I'm not dictating American foreign policy. So
or better or worse.
exactly, yeah. He's started off by writing. He was campaigned for Hillary Clinton, campaigned and worked for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Worked for Brookings, which is a far left institution. Worked on the Senator John Kerry from Democrat from North Carolina. So,
A lot of these guys are writers somehow.
yes, who was the idiot?
Yeah, Matthew Palmer.
Sorry?
Matthew Palmer was the...
Well, yeah, Matthew Palmer, yeah, who's still, I mean, he writes The Wolf of Sarajevo and The American Mission and things like that, and he comes...
Hoping that he will get Margot Robbie to star in the
But the other one that worked for Obama in the National Security Council, Ben Rhodes.
Yeah.
Who then admitted that it was a big echo chamber that, you know, and they were just telling lies, etc. So
We had a crazy situation in Bosnia. Now they're having this day of the Republika Srpska, the Serbian statelet, and there was a stern response from the U.S. embassy there that they're celebrating the day because it's kind of like genocidal and it's considered like a product of genocide, the entity. And then pushing for independence puts the country on the road to ruin. Like they actually use the terms like it's gonna destroy the Republika Srpska. And then they also said like stop following like the will o wisp of independence. Like the turn of phrase, the will o wisp.
Will o' the wisp is a common phrase actually in English, but I can't remember. It's a literary.
Yeah.
Comes from a book or something like that. So, but that's what they were telling me.
That's what they used.
Exactly. So Derek was here. He's on a trip. Started off in the United Arab Emirates, I think, and then he's in Macedonia, Kosovo, and Serbia too. This, I guess, is a follow-on of Team Sanctions.
Team Sanctions.
I don't know what he's reading the Riot Act or.
We were expecting him to come before New Year and to deliver like the list of politicians who will be put on the blacklist by the United States, which is something that was announced by the new ambassador Angela Geller, completely unforced. They had a stable government doing its bidding, whatever they asked for SDSM and DUI deliver. But apparently they're not satisfied in full with what they got here. They want to shake it up a little. And Angela Geller announced that there is a sanction team in Skopje looking into corrupt actors from all sides. So it's no news that they're going after VMRO people, if they do. But what she said was that we're going after current incumbent government officials, and also that she was pretty testy after the new special prosecutor was appointed, who is a DUI candidate, DUI official. So this is unheard of, that the U.S. Embassy is going after their most loyal soldiers here, the DUI, the Albanians, and SDSM, which are also now totally loyal. We heard some crazy stuff about the sanctions thing, but we'll give it a few episodes maybe before
we need to confirm these things.
Yeah. Or stop laughing after what we heard. But they came, they left, they apparently prepared a list, and there is incumbent officials apparently. So Chalet was just meeting Kovachevsky, the Prime Minister. Before that, they were talking on the phone like days ago. And he left without giving a statement. The Prime Minister was left to say that, which is a very important, interesting signal, right? The Prime Minister said that they did not discuss a blacklist. He did not bring a blacklist with him, but they discussed what is now the huge burning issue of corruption in the government. I mean, Prime Minister did not say that, but this is the problem. And there are other burning issues. We have Kosovo, like in every other day something new and escalatory happens.
Certain children were shot the other week. Yeah.
We had a situation with the Kosovo Academy, like it was last month, but still very interesting. They actually publicly rebuked Ali Ahmeti for not wanting to get Macedonia involved in the whole mess around redrawing the Kosovo borders. So their position was, let's prevent the Serbs from taking a part of Kosovo, the northern part. Let's protect the integrity of Kosovo. But you, Ahmeti, saying that if the Serbs take this part, you will ask for an equal portion of Macedonia, like proportionate to population. So they were couching this as, okay, this will prevent the partition of Kosovo, but in reality, everybody reads it like, okay, if the Serbs take Mitrovica, which would be cost to pay for the agreement, then we, at least Albanians, we take half of Macedonia, right?
Right.
And this was from the Academy of Sciences, which is an institution which usually starts a war in the Balkans. So this was interesting. And Chalet is now going from Skopje to Pristina and then to Belgrade. And we'll see, I guess, soon if what is the message, what are the marching orders, if we have people in the Albanian partner, in DUI being charged. The party is split. There is an active faction within DUI, which is also unheard of. Ahmeti was just killed. I mean, he actually shot a rival in Kičevo not like 5-6 years ago.
Oh, I do
Local
remember that.
elections,
Yeah.
So I'm not really overdoing this. They shot a rival politician in Pristina. They killed him actually. That was also a big deal. Yeah, they had two relatively recent murders, like domestic Albanian camp house cleaning. And we'll see if something like this happens, and what happens to SDSM if there will be there will be SDSM people as well, or the embassy could just go the stupidest route, the usual route, and just go after VMRO people, which they are saying that government needs to fight corruption, but VMRO needs to sign on the dotted line and admit the Bulgarians in the constitution and open the door to continued further relativization of Macedonian national identity. So they might just, use this to use force to go after VMRO, but at the moment it looks like they want to use enticement or even the prospect of broad coalitions bringing VMRO to power in exchange for their votes.
Right.
So there's a lot of there.
There is, and And of course, the press release that the U.S. Embassy put out said that Chalet was here to talk about, energy, the economy, and of course they end with the fight against corruption. So, so we'll see. Be interesting. I mean, I saw that Chalet put out a comment after his meeting with the UAE before he came here. So he might put out something on the Twitter spheres, on social media, etc.
Yeah, the Kosovo press will catch on to him, but they'll discuss just about Kosovo. They wouldn't talk about Macedonia.
Yeah. But related to that, so Edi Rama, the Prime Minister of Albania, invited all the ethnic Albanian leaders of Macedonia to come to Tirana for a chat, and that just happened, I think, last night. So it's kind of like, I always wonder how, if Vladimir Putin were to invite the ethnic Russian leadership of Estonia or Latvia to come to Moscow, the West would go mad and denounce it and everything else. But this happens, and nobody says.
And they will be arrested on return home.
Yeah.
Well, in our case, there were calls here that we arrest the Albanian leaders after they return to Skopje, but they're more likely to arrest the Macedonian members of the government than the other way around.
So they met and they talked about, I guess, I don't know. Some people said it was just a chance to enjoy wine and a good meal, and others said it was a chance to try and shore up support for the various Albanian parties here. What did you hear?
So the last time we had this was 2016 when John Brennan, the CIA director, was in Tirana, and immediately after, Edi Rama convened the leaders of the Albanian parties, and the agreement was do not form a coalition with VMRO, bring SDSM to power, and we'll get everything we wanted. And they had the Tirana platform. They did not get everything they wanted. They got a lot of things, but they have a strategy of procrastination, or not tactical. What was the general's name? God, the Roman general.
What era?
The steady wins the race. The communists used after the.
I can't. Sorry. Anyway,
I forget. Okay, so the salami slicing tactics, since I can't remember the classical reference. And the current bit of salami the Albanians want, is that we have the Albanian language made fully official in the constitution. So since we are forced by the Bulgarians and the EU and the US government to amend the constitution and add the Bulgarians in the constitution as a nation, that may then eventually expand to cover the Macedonians, by enticement, by the Bulgarians would like to say through beatings and through good. So dobro и so чутки, so čodak. With goodwill and with beatings.
Yeah.
So that's
stick and carrot.
Yeah, that's how they say it. So the Albanians say, okay, the next bit we want in our gradual takeover would be that we already have a law that the Albanian language is fully official. Zaev gave us that, but it hit a rock in the constitution because the constitution does not provide for this. So let's amend the constitution now and explicitly state that the official languages are the Macedonian and the Albanian. But this would complicate the already difficult vote for the Bulgarian amendment. So practically VMRO is blocking this. There needs to be 81 votes for this. VMRO does not give the votes, obviously. And but they might give the votes through defections of some kind if there is an agreement for early elections, after which VMRO would easily win, judging by the polls. So the Albanians say, okay, if we press this demand right now, we might spoil this other thing, we might spoil the whole process, we might overreach, but then there's obviously complaints that we are not reaching far enough for the position we have at the moment. And this was definitely one of the points of discussion. What do we do with Macedonia? What are our next demands from Macedonia in terms of the Albanian national cause? But also, let's be realistic. I mean, with the shootings in Kosovo, with everything else going on, instead of salami slicing, there might be just one large move of the cleaver. And if Kosovo is split, is divided, the obvious logical demand from the Albanians will be, we want our part of Macedonia, if not immediately, then at least in some sort of Republika Srpska or the Northern Mitrovica part in Kosovo. autonomous portion of Macedonia, that self-governed Albanian portion of Macedonia. That would be the logical next step, depending on how things go in Kosovo and Bosnia.
Right. I think it's worth reiterating. You mentioned the meeting in 2006. I think it was actually 2017. But they released the so-called Tirana platform.
January,
Yeah, they released the so-called Tirana platform on Christmas Day, Orthodox Christmas Day, January 7, which was done with malice aforethought to stick it into the eye of the Macedonians. So, and nobody said diddly squat about that either. So it's just kind of, they continue to do this. You also mentioned John Brennan, who was the CIA director. Fun fact about John Brennan is that he actually admitted that when he was a younger man, his first vote as a American citizen being able to vote in a presidential election was for the then communist candidate for president in the 1970s, I believe it was.
You have a serious problem with your intelligence, people.
Yeah. And John Brennan is a particularly despicable form of evil. Now, of course, he's retired, but he still tweets, and he's a hot mess. But yeah, you're right about our intelligence. So. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Now, you mentioned early elections, which Miskovsky keeps asking for. Doesn't seem to be getting anywhere with those. But this is January of 2023. I should mention that we're recording this. Today is January 11, episode 149. Normally, parliamentary elections would be held in, is it a year from now?
Summer of 2024.
Summer of 2024. And that would be along with presidential.
The presidential, yeah.
Right.
He would have to, I think, resign a little early or something like that. There needs a little fine-tuning, but they're both in 2024.
Okay. So that's a little over a year, call it 15 months, spring, summer, so 16 months from now. I don't see how, unless there's some internal machinations going on in Sudasa, how they're going to be able to bring forward early elections before that.
The card Wimmer is playing is obviously the amendments to the Constitution. They can't say that.
Right.
But it's pretty clear with all because with the SDSM positions accepting the Bulgarian demands, and which were then quickly accepted by the EU at the council level, at the level of Brussels, or the top Brussels decision makers, and the US government is obviously reiterating the call for the opposition to vote for this. There's no getting out of this. It's accepted by our government that if we do not deliver, that then Bulgaria has right to block our accession talks. We did not say this before. We would never say this before with regard to the Greeks. We would always say this is unprincipled, this is a crazy request, you're violating EU principles, so blah, blah, blah. And we would never agree that the blocking country has the right. Now, SDSM officials go out and they say, well, it's not Bulgaria blocking us, we're self-blocking us, our own opposition is blocking us, which is a very new turn of phrase for us. And practically they acknowledge that Bulgaria will do this. By the end of this year, there is some kind of bureaucratic movement in Brussels by the end of this year, without amendments, but if we do not amend the constitution by the end of this year, then Bulgaria will block us, and our government says it's their right to do, and they will do it, and it will be Wimmer's fault. So Wimmer is demanding early elections, and I don't know so we have the defections of around the Prespa Treaty of 2019, when 8 Wimmer members bribed, blackmailed, voted for the Prespa Treaty. Yeah. So now Mickovsky says he will resign as party leader if one of them votes for this. And we're in a pickle, but there is no other way out. It's either somebody from Wimmer cashes in and the party is in turmoil, or they hold firm and get some concessions out of this, mainly early elections. And what they demand also, Wimmer says, okay, we'll accept this amendment. We have all the other ethnic groups in the the constitution, but we want a guarantee from EU or from the Bulgarians that this will be the last of it. There will be no more demands.
And reciprocity, I believe. Or did they drop that?
Kind of, yeah. I think it was either or.
Yeah.
Initially.
So yeah, demand that there be no more concessions, which of course, the Bulgarians would probably say, with their fingers crossed behind their backs, no more concessions, of course. But they cannot be trusted. To your point about how this is developed, I think Pendarovsky keeps saying, look, all the leaders here have agreed on a European perspective. True. Everybody wants to join the European Union. True. Now we can join the European Union, but there's just one thing we have to do. And so it's that's how they flipped the whole thing to make it, you guys, Vumero, are the bad guys because you say you want a European perspective, but you're not willing to take the next step. Or not the last step, but the next step, because after that there will be a next step, and after that there will be a next step.
No, they were super opposed to this request, Pendarovsky, Kovachevsky, everybody.
Yeah.
And then Kovachevsky was invited to I think it was the Harry Truman aircraft carrier. Very lightly publicized visit, unlike when Zaev was invited some time back. And then he flipped on a dime. You say you can't turn an aircraft carrier, but you can turn like a statelet and a corrupt government very quickly.
Exactly, yeah. What was he promised?
Or... was he kept under the, for how long was he kept in water? Did they tie him to an empty fuel drum and said,
we're going to push you over. Exactly.
But now we have practically, their parties collapsing. There was the IRI poll, which showed beating them almost 2-1. And this Vumero is not growing in the polls, but because the issue of Bulgaria is so poisonous for SDSM diehards, the old communist guard, so they're splitting by themselves. We just had the funniest development was that Mia abolished all the correspondent positions, including my own, in Washington. They abolished the position in Brussels, in Washington, and in Athens.
That's Tanya
Milovska, and it's all because of her, the niece of Borian Ivanovsky. Diehard SDSM, completely red bourgeoisie, communist era family, etc. And they're split now in their own family. Borian Ivanovsky openly supports the Bulgarian concession. They're trying to portray it as some major victory because Bulgaria would agree to say that we are Macedonians now and that this term exists with some meaning since 1944. This is what they're accepting and declaring a victory for the country. And everything before that would be taught in our schools as, Bulgarians, 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 or Greeks, 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 and then Bulgarians, 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 and then in the last 5 minutes of our historical span would be, Macedonians.
Right.
So Borian says, great. But Tanya and her mother, Svetlana Ivanovska, who was appointed as spokeswoman of the embassy in the EU. So she was spokeswoman of the embassy and her daughter was correspondent. Perfect. And they were both fired because of public criticism of you're giving too much to the Bulgarians. And she would post my grandmother fought the Bulgarians, she would cut their heads off or something like that. And there are maybe not hundreds, but dozens of public statements from EU officials, from the Union of Journalists, somebody she's tight with in Brussels, and stop whenever somebody would tweet something at Tanya Milovska, and there would be a statement that we are violating the freedom of the press of a courageous woman journalist, sticking it to the patriarchy and the nationalists and everybody. And now she's being fired, her position abolished for political reasons. She gave one interview in which she clearly stated that she's being fired for political reasons, and there is complete silence everywhere. It's beautiful.
Is she going to stay there? Or do you guys
they live there for so long.
Okay, so they'll get some
connections.
And she'll go to work for some NGO or something.
She used to work for Georgi Gotov. Remember him? That was beautiful.
He finally banned me. Or blocked me on Twitter.
Oh, he banned me a decade ago.
I know,
but seriously.
yeah, because I remember I found an old tweet of his. Well, it wasn't at the time it was current, and I copied. He said the North Macedonians, quote unquote, have existed since 1945 or something like that. So it's just kind of
when the money was good, she worked with this guy. She had no problem working with typical Bulgarian promoter of Bulgarian historical positions, which is what you said is a typical Bulgarian position, and our government is now agreeing to it.
Right.
But now they're on the Nikola Dimitrov Open Balkan bandwagon, so they're practically like the other option is. The option is EU integration and adopting of Bulgarian identity, or integration with Serbia and identity stays, like this Yugoslavized version of our identity stays, but no EU for you. You get to stay in a regional customs area with Serbia and Bosnia and Montenegro and Albania until that point when Albania and Serbia decide to actually hard partition the lands instead of soft partitioning it as they're doing now at the moment.
Right. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got for today?
No, but the divisions in SDSM are actually pretty fascinating. There are now two open. So after the IRI poll, there are now two open scenarios for the government. For early elections, they're openly discussed by SDSM people, by the government. So until yesterday, they would say, okay, we are buying, we're getting, we're persuading VMRO people to vote for this. As of a few, maybe 10 days ago, this has completely turned. And we're now talking about who is in which faction in SDSM. And VMRO is now saying, okay, we are now hunting for SDSM members of parliament to vote to bring down the government. So the divisions are, Zaev obviously had a huge faction, funded the party for so long, had some rivalry with Branko Crvenkovski, but had him sidelined. Elevated Kovachevsky after he lost the local elections. We're still not sure what was the real reason he had to resign from the government and from politics practically. Who or what pressured him? Was it just the local elections loss or something else? He practically gave the party to a new person who is trying to make amends with Crvenkovsky's wing. So he's bringing in intelligence people from Crvenkovsky's faction. Very powerful intelligence operator, Mile Zicevic. He's now hailed as the new SDSM's Mijalkov, ever present. He's a Serbian, but he's adding a new last name to his name, Mile Zicevic Vardarski of Vardar. So he's now like the patriotic. He's literally using the term branik, which Mijalkov used, which was like a shoulder, like a defensive position. But it was also the name of like a pro-Bulgarian, pro-fascist organization in Greek, Aegean Macedonia, who was killing Greeks during the Second World War. So it's not a term that these types usually use. Zaev is apparently not satisfied with this outcome. And there was a journalist, Branko Girovski, who launched the whole collapse of the special prosecutor of Katica Janeva, a lot of the fund developments in 2018, 2019. He's now saying, okay, there is a secretive arrangement between Zaev and Mickovsky. Zaev wants to help Mickovsky win power, not for his own sake, but this would embarrass, this would defeat the new leader of SDSM, and the party would, by default, turn back to Zaev, the last winning leader of the party, and he would get his own party back, and then hopefully not wait 10 years like SDSM had to wait until Gruevski, but then probably sooner dispose of Mickovsky. And the twist in this, which Girovski said, was that Zaev would try to even avoid going into opposition fully, but would try to have early elections with the help of members of parliament loyal to him, members of government loyal to him. He has three powerful members of government: the interior minister, the agriculture, and the transportation minister, the infrastructure ministers. They're his people. Bring down the government through parliament, through loyalists in parliament. And then have early elections. SDSM would probably lose. They have a faction in Kumanovo. They would have a faction now with Zaev and Kovachevsky as the nominal leader. and they would probably lose, but the Zaev would try to take over the party and then request an all-Macedonian coalition, like the two main Macedonian parties, VMRO and SDSM, forming the pillar of the next government, having Albanians, obviously, for representation, but maybe not DUI, maybe not the whole of DUI, which is also having factions, in a much weakened position than now. The Albanians now run about half the government, which is unheard of. And then, like, the prime minister would be whoever wins the elections. Like, if VMRO wins, Mickoski; if SDSM wins, Zaev or Kovacevski. And then the other side would probably get the president's seat, like in 2024 when the elections are due. So if Mickoski is prime minister, then Zaev would run for president in 2024. And this is like an open challenge to Kovacevski. And Kovacevski responded to an intermediary of his that he would like to see an all-Albanian government, so practically all the Albanian parties. Okay, early elections if it happens, okay. SDSM running together in pre-election coalition with DUI, with the Alternative, with the Alliance, all the Albanian parties, except for BESA, which is now coming out as the strongest challenger to DUI, did not attend the meeting in Tirana, so they are like
they have the mayorship of Tetovo.
Tetovo, a very powerful position. Yeah. So this would be like their response, like try to win the next elections with bare like 61 votes, seats in parliament if we join most of the Albanian parties around us, and still count on some loyalist SDSM voters who would not be dismayed by voting for a list that would be half or even more than half Albanian. So these are now two openly discussed options, which could easily get into, be activated if the US Embassy stands firm in its plan to actually shake up the government, starts arresting people, and then we'll see where things go. So we went from the strong government, weathered the challenge from Mickoski a year and a few months ago, new leader re-elected, opening EU accession talks as they portray the developments in Brussels. And we are hunting for VMRO members of parliament to join us. They went from this position to, okay, we have 3 or 4 factions in SDSM, 2 in DUI. The ambassadors are on our case, which has never happened before. We don't know how to respond to this. And we might fall. The date is like maybe a new government vote in February to form a new government, to dissolve parliament in a new government, a technical government, and then elections in May. This is the timeline put forward by Mickoski.
Right, and that's everybody keeps forgetting, I think, about once there's an agreement to have elections, there's a 100-day period, I believe, of a technical government.
Yeah.
So both parties. And, what was the other one?
A new prime minister.
Yes, but an ethnic Albanian.
Yes, I kind of forgot about that.
I was having that conversation with somebody the other day. And so an ethnic Albanian as prime minister, which would be the first time in Macedonia's history. And how does that factor in? What does that mean? How do people respond to that? I'm not sure. It's something to think about. Maybe we'll keep that and think about that and cogitate on it for our 150th episode. But that is something that Ali Ahmeti hasn't forgotten, I'm sure. He'll be pushing for. So we will see.
I don't know what the end game is here. This was a coordinated push by the US ambassador and then the British and the EU ambassadors. They stopped. They put this out in December, and then they're not insisting on this that much in their public statements.
They took a break for the holidays.
Yeah. Today, there was no statement from the visiting dignitary and whatnot. But, is the goal to actually, is it dawning on them that they have alienated the majority population in this country for so long that, Macedonians are honestly, disgusted by the US, and this comes up,
right,
with the sanctions guys and everybody that why do you like Russia? You Macedonians like Russia so much. Well, do another coup in Macedonia against the pro-Macedonian government and give more concessions to everybody around us and bring more corrupt, deracinated leaders like Zaev in power and let's see what happens then.
Yeah, it's not so much why do you Macedonians hate America? It's why do you Macedonians hate the State Department? It's because the Russians haven't attempted a coup in Macedonia. Yeah. And this I think we've talked about this in our last podcast, and I've written about it. The idea that perhaps the State Department, Kale, realized that they've gone too far in pushing the center right and elevating the center left and the Albanians, and critically that in doing so, in ignoring corruption from Syriza and the Albanian parties, they being the State Department, have essentially said to the Macedonian population, corruption is okay, it's fine, it's tolerable, and which in turn weakens institutions, which in turn weakens the state of Macedonia. And they know that. They're smart enough to know that, and so that could be it. But like you said, like we talked about, we'll have to wait and see what they actually do, what the next steps are with team sanctions and their next steps.
They could actually have a NATO member collapse on itself. I mean, there is no more purpose of for this country. If Macedonians give up, say, okay, fine, we tried once in 98, we had a coup practically in a war. There was, the war of 2001, the bringing down of the Georgievsky government, who was the first one who openly advocated pro-Western positions, aligned with the U.S. Against Serbia, which was unheard of, unimaginable for us at the time. And then the U.S. stabbed him in the back immediately, like a year and a half after the war in Kosovo. There was like hundreds of Georgievsky's men being arrested in 2002 when SDSM, Crvenkovski and Hari Kostov took over. This was like the first massive arrest since communism in Macedonia, before the current campaign against Gruevski's Vemera. And one of these guys, who was a customs director, Dragan Daravilski, he fled to Serbia, charged over several million of some customs procedure that he allegedly rigged this way or that way to make this money, and he was protected by Serbia for so long. Apparently his son died and he had to return to Macedonia eventually after extradition requests were ignored by Serbia. He's now arrested, but we're still arresting people from the purge carried out by Ambassador Butler. And
or Ambassador Einik in 2001 too. So.
He was I don't think he was a factor in anything. But and we're not to mention the ongoing arrests of current Vemera people, and nobody goes to prison from DUI or SDSM. And obviously Macedonians are going to get a hint and say the US does not want us to exist as a Macedonian state. But we have to accept everything else, and if that's the reason, if this is not a Macedonian state, but that's the price we have to pay, losing the Macedonian identity, to have an orderly, functioning country with investments and infrastructure to get the EU largesse, etc. One, it's pretty uncertain that we are actually getting something out of this. We were arguably getting much more investments and even EU infrastructure funding under Gruevski than now. Visible funding. Plus we were getting Chinese, Russian investments now. That's verboten. And then, if this is not going to be a Macedonian country, but that's the process we have to go through to get something, to live in an orderly functioning country, well, listen, hey, I can just give up and go to a non-Macedonian orderly functioning country right now. I can go to Portugal, I can go to Ireland, I can go to Italy, I can go anywhere, and, have the same thing right now without waiting for cycles and cycles and cycles of changing our national identity. Well, then maybe this will unlock some meager funding from some highway or water treatment plant, and then we give up on that, and we might get why wait?
Right.
If the end game is you lose the country, but the territory is going to be maybe slightly less impoverished and backwards.
Yeah.
So, or it could be just that somebody in State Department misses the old arrangements they had with Zaev, which were apparently very lucrative for some of them, and they just say, "Listen, let's have another role of the old marijuana planting." Now in some cases they're actually now the big business is no longer marijuana because we've crashed domestic energy production. So now every politician is setting up an energy trading business, and they're just importing electricity from Bulgaria or from Republika Srpska, even funnier, and they're just making money on the click of the button. You don't even have to grow the marijuana and then find some Albanians to steal it from you and smuggle it to Italy. This is much cleaner, much faster. So now somebody in state might be interested in getting, just lining their pockets with from the carcass of this country through Zaev again.
Yeah, well, I want to touch on something that I think Stevo Pendarovsky said during his speech to the diplomats in December. He said, there's no danger of a Macedonian becoming a Bulgarian, which, number one, is not true.
Yeah.
It just takes a little time. So, to this idea that, you accept the incessant and constant and continuous Bulgarian demands, that's no danger to the Macedonian identity.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's going to wake up one morning, go to bed at night saying I'm a Macedonian, and wake up the next morning saying they're a Bulgarian. That's not going to happen. It's because it happens over time. And when you start doing things like changing the textbooks and teaching this crap in school and letting the Albanians, do their thing, then people's perception, and not just people, but especially the children, over time, that's going to have a net negative effect. And it's the way it's always been done throughout all of history, and it is a clear and present danger. And if you don't address it, it's going to come back and bite you, and you will wake up one day with kids that have a Bulgarian consciousness, and the Albanians running the entire government and the economy. So that is something I can't stress. It's got to be watched. That's why the education is so vital. And
we have to put it forward to both our friends and neighbors here in downtown Skopje, which normally votes left and are above it all. They have advanced from their primordial, nationalist state. They are now citizens of the world.
Citizen of the world, yes.
And to the State Department that you will. This is not a very watered down identity. We have a fake flag drawn under pressure by a person who is open Macedonophobe, open hater of Macedonian national identity, like a deranged person. Seriously. Grčev, Miroslav Grčev. We have a fake coat of arms. Gruevski had the votes in parliament to change it when the Karadzic Revolution started, to change it with a proper historical coat of arms. It's now the only socialist relic, except for Belarus in Europe. We have a fake anthem. The original anthem is not used. Izgre Zorana Sloboda. So we have an anthem written by a partisan song written by the father of Macedonia's first foreign minister, Dinko Malevski, Vladimir Malevski, whose son now was a true and true communist, would not support Macedonian independence, said you can have an independent country outside of Yugoslavia but without me in it. We got an independent country. He stayed here as foreign minister, no less. Then he discovered that he's Albanian because his mother is from Albania, I think Macedonian from Albania. So he played this card to try to be the Dui candidate for president instead of Pendarovsky, like a Macedono-Albanian candidate. Currently, the biggest supporter of Bulgarian positions. I don't think he has gone to the point to declare himself as a Bulgarian. But he's very close. He's awfully close. From all people in the public eye, he's very, very close. So this is the guy whose father wrote the anthem.
Right.
These are all made up, imposed
Yep.
symbols. We erased any claim to ancient classical era history. The latest agreement with Bulgaria goes up to the point of summer, I think. Next, the Turks come, so there is a period of pause, but afterwards we'll be discussing the national liberation struggle. We'll see what concessions come there. So, why would a person identify himself with this identity if we are watering it down to fit the cosmopolitan views of our leftists here in Skopje and the U.S. Embassy? I mean, who doesn't care?
Right. I guess, to be fair, the Americans on Kale and the State Department don't think of themselves as Americans either. They're citizens of the world. So, but yeah, no, you're right. It's a danger.
Right. Bulgaria is a bit more like middle of the roadish. Okay, not Bulgarians, but let's say Macedonian Bulgarians or Bulgarian Macedonians. Some middle of the road definition. And then, if they couple it with issuing passports even more and they might actually legitimately demand, after the constitutional amendment, public sector quotas for Bulgarians at the level, not at the level of the census, which was about 3,000.
Right.
There are like 3,000 active Bulgarians, self-declared Bulgarians in Macedonia. They can say, listen, we have documents, paper trail, that 100,000 Macedonians sought this. And then there is their children and maybe more extended families, but they're under terror. The clubs are being attacked, and the public discourse is negative, so they fear to declare themselves in the census. But we will request public sector quotas like you have for the 400, 500,000 Albanians at 25-30%. 400,000 Bulgarians will want 12-15% of the public sector.
Right.
This is not nothing. We can, the government can respond, but listen, those are people who took the passports to go to Germany to work, blah, blah. No. We have them on paper, on the record. Your next round of accession talks is coming up. We're blocking this until you open your quota for public sector hirings.
Right.
Very easily they can get to 20-30,000 just the claimants for public sector jobs, self-declared Bulgarians with extended families. I mean, this can easily, with scholarships, with stuff like that. I mean, their motto is with goodwill and with some beating. So now they're mostly using the stick of but if they use the carrot a little bit more, wisely, they could have major effect in a state of total disenchantment and defeatism in this case.
Yeah, and this is to say nothing we have neglected in this conversation and in numerous previous podcasts. The Greek demands are not finished yet. I think the Greeks, as a matter of strategy, are just kind of laying low when they see what the Bulgarians are doing and say, let the Bulgarians, carry on with all this. And when the time comes, when the various chapters of the EU accession talks need to be ratified by the various EU member states, then we will present our new demands.
Actually, I think the Greeks are turning around coming to this realization, which we would like to impress on our listeners on that side of the ideological divide. On the other side, that I think they realize that they're getting awfully close to the point of having Greater Albania and Greater Bulgaria on their borders to the north, not to mention having Turkey on the other side. So I think they would like us as a buffer state.
Right.
The issue is, do we want a buffer state if this means to be a buffer state? If this means just like a economical and technical entity, but not history, no legacy, no culture. And what, as you said, just look to Aegean Macedonia and the Macedonians there. So it's one thing that we have Macedonians, Imperial Macedonia, who adopt the Bulgarian identity. It's relatively easy. The name stays the same. The religion stays the same. It's just we emphasize this person from history more, that person less. It's just a slightly different reading. Okay, we do not have a lot of the Bulgarian, the era of the Khans legacy in Macedonia. In Vardar or in Pirin, you wouldn't find many people called Asparuh or Krum or something like that. But other than this portion of the history, everything else is more or less the same. It's just the historical narrative. And yet, overwhelming majority of the people there now say they're Bulgarian, even though the census after the war, and for quite a lot of time in communist Bulgaria under Dimitrov, and for a while under Zhivkov. A lot of them would say they are Macedonians, hundreds of thousands of them, not like the few thousand that would claim this identity now. But to go from Macedonian to Greek in Aegean Macedonia, it's a huge, huge split. And still it happened. And it was carried out, and there is relatively little resistance. And for Pendarovsky to say, no, it can't happen, they're trying to say, the addendum to this is, they're trying to shift the ball to Vimera. They say, listen, but it's usually your people, Vimera people, who claim Bulgarian passports. And this is why, if you're seeing this, that we are endangered, it's because you're secretly planning, or your own voters are flexible, are not solid on this issue, on the issue of remaining Macedonians, and they're likely to become Bulgarians.
Right.
Where in reality, obviously, the Vimera voters are more blue collar. They've been screwed over by the SDSM governments in the deindustrialization, etc. They're losing their identity. They do not have the choice of scholarships through, paid for by the government usually, and going to this institute. Like when a colored revolution person leaves Macedonia, it's usually going to Columbia. They go to Berkeley. They go to the Austrian universities. When a Vimera person needs to leave the country, they go to paint walls and install drywall in Germany, and obviously they're going to claim passports.
Right.
Not to mention the active persecution. I know people who have very legitimately sought Bulgarian passports because they were charged for idiotic things under Tsavenkovsky and Harry Kostov then. I don't really know about anybody from this period, but I'm sure people are looking into this. So, it's... hey, why are you leaving the country? Because you're destroying it and you're actively persecuting me. Like, screw you. Like, I'm not staying here. So, yeah, this is where we at.
Right. Well, I think
on that
cheery note, we don't have a farmer's pick. I'd like to say something positive, about the weather, but it's dreary. The economy sucks, but not just here, everywhere. So if misery loves company. So we don't really have a cheery note to end on. But you know what? This is the 149th episode of. We've been doing this for 3 years. 3 years. That's incredible. Which is good because I've seen some other niche podcasts, focused on the Balkans or areas of the Balkans that have just kind of fallen flat. Yet we keep on doing it. Hopefully, it's something that our listeners enjoy, and
hopefully we'll outlive North Macedonia, if not Macedonia as such.
Definitely.
We do a podcast when we restore the name sometime in the distant future.
Never say never. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's a good wrap. We'll get this posted, and we'll hopefully talk again before I take off.
Sure thing. Take care, buddy.
You too.